So today what we're looking at is some advanced Dungeons & Dragons, Player's Handbook, and a little bit from the DM's Guide as well. And today we're going to be looking at the Thief. So the thing that we need to think about when it comes to thieves is, the first part is that the DM needs to have an understanding of what a thief means to their campaign and what that means overall. How the thieves work: are they part of a guild? Are they independent? Is the guild local, regional, national? They might exist within a single province. They might have city by city arrangements. What the DM has to figure out from there is where the player character fits in to the general guild, if they're playing a guild thief. The archetype for the thief is the Grey Mouser from the Lankmar series. Everything that the Grey Mouser does is exactly what a D&D thief is supposed to do. However, of course, over the course of everything else, when we're looking at characters and being inspired, we want to have other types of thieves. We don't just want to all play the same type of thief. So what can you do within the boundaries of the thief class to make one thief the Grey Mouser compared to, say, the Count of Monte Cristo or even Indiana Jones, who all do everything that a thief does but have different forms of motivation? So the DM needs to really work out where that thief character class sits in their world before they even start. That's on that list of things that they need to do. Fighters are the other one, and between the fighter and the thief, you're looking at two classes that are the most prolific in terms of classes, which also brings up a very interesting question on what it is to be a character, whether it's a non-player character, like a character class, whether it's a non-player character or a player character. How do you determine the difference between a thief, small t, and thief, capital T? You might have a thieves guild that has 500 people within its membership, but maybe 100 might be actual level 1 thieves, or a leveled thief, and the balance being 0 levels, training, aspiring, or wanting to become those thieves. So in a standard operation where the thief is trying to break into a second-story building and get into a moneylender's house, and etc, 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 you might have a couple of guys on lookout, 0 levels, someone for the muscle, 0 levels, someone to arrange for the horses and the carriages and the whatever else, 0 levels. Then you might have 1 or 2 actual level thieves who are doing the work. And we see this in a lot of the literature, where they get to a point, then they step back, and then someone else steps in to do that task. It could just be that person was the best skilled at that, or they're the ones that are the actual thief. So then you'll have your master thieves, which coordinate, plan, and organize all these things, which become like the guild as part of the guild scenario. In most games, you want characters to be relatively well aligned, so that way they don't lead to chaos within the party. And a small talk about alignment is going to be useful, because thieves generally are non-good type characters, although neutral good is what commonly accepted thief alignment. Lawful neutral is a great alignment for a guild thief, because the guilds have rules. As an example, in Lankmar, if you bust into break one of those rules, it is severe punishments. And if you're a non-guild thief, you'll be approached, asked to join. If you choose not to join, you can be told to not activate or not be active, or die. The Lankmar Guild, or Thieves Guild, has a strong association with the Slayers, which are the Assassins Guild, and they share a lot of resources. So when you've got your assassin class, this is another topic but similar, the DM has to also figure out how the assassin works within the confines of their milieu, and that's something that also you've got to sort out. With all of that, the player characters saying, I want to be a thief. What type of thief? How do you want to do it? And so on. When it comes to the races, obviously we have different attitudes towards what they are. I mean, the halfling thief is clearly based sort of around the idea of Bilbo Baggins and the burglar, and halflings are tricksy, sneaky, sort of lightly touched fellows who enjoy the nice and pretty things. Same thing with gnomes, and dwarves are good with obviously the mechanics and so on. So is a dwarven thief more like a master locksmith that happens to have other dexterous skills? Is that how their thieves guilds work? For the most part, non-human thieves will be multi-class in some way, and which lends itself to what is the balance of the other class. But again, there's a lot to work with when it comes to how the non-human thief is going to be put together. But what we're going to just be looking at is some elements of just the basic thief. I'm not trying to put any racial overtones onto anything and to put it all through and so on, but just in terms of when the player says, I'd like to play a thief, exactly what that can do and how it can enhance the overall campaign and enjoyment for everybody, which is what we're all here to try and do. So thieves are primarily dexterous, which is what you would expect, and dexterity is their number one skill. So they're with a high dex, you get the extra addition of experience points. But depending on the type of thief you wish to be, a good stat in charisma or intelligence and also strength is kind of useful. You want to be able to carry the loot out, you want to be able to have intelligent conversations and know many languages, and you also want to be able to interact well with NPCs and talk your way out of problems just as easily as you find yourself in them. So the number of functions within the thief. So here we have a class that doesn't get magic as such. Remember, this is first edition AD&D, so they don't really have magic, but what they have is a set of specialized skills that are unable to be taught to other classes. And you might be thinking, but you can do sleight of hand, you can do this and you can do that, and you can palm and so on. Some of those skills might be skills, making a coin move from one hand to the other or from behind someone's ear. But what we're talking about here in terms of picking pockets is not just a skill of, I can pick your pocket, I can take something out of your pocket without you noticing. It's knowing the mark, knowing where the pocket is, knowing the best way of approaching and so on. There's more to it than just that, which is the reason why there's a major adjustment for characters of a level. And this is where we come back to what does it mean to be a character with a level. There's a nice little modifier. If your character is over a certain level, then picking pockets becomes harder. As you become more experienced as an adventurer, or in your general class, as a class, you are more familiar with the ways and the means of other classes. So as someone approaches you and you sort of think, they're coming at me in a different way than a normal person, you can sort of pick the different types of classes because you've probably hung out with them before and you know what to look for. And if you've hung out with a thief, then that thief is going to be telling you how to watch out for other thieves that might try and pick your pocket. So that's why as you grow in experience, this skill becomes harder. So it's not so much I have the ability or I have a single chance to pick a pocket. There's more to it, which is another reason why half-elves have a good benefit, because when we see the half-elves, they're generally attractive people and we let them get close and near to us, and then by the time we realize what's going on, they've taken off with our stuff. Because ultimately, if you really wanted something, you just knock somebody over the head and grab their bag and run. And that doesn't really require a level of a thief. It's just the way that lowercase thieves work. But again, in a guild, they would work and report back to the guild, handing everything over. And then one day they would learn the other arts. So with the picking of the pockets, we have a little bit more than what you would think, and same too with opening locks. Opening locks includes an understanding of many different types of puzzles and combinations, playing with tumblers, having good senses, which we'll get to with the finding and removing traps, and hearing and listening at doors, hearing noise. But when you're opening up a lock, there's a lot of information that you're taking. The way that you can do it, if you fail the roll with the lock, you can't do that lock until you go up to the next level. So it's busted you. There are times when you need to have that lock open, and there's a time frame for a standard picking of the lock. What I would suggest is that there are times when you need to have a lock opened. If it's just a simple lock to a chest and it's just got some money in it and nothing of real importance to the story or the value, they can't do it. If they fail, they might not be able to do it. If they've got all the time in the world, they just take the chest. If they've got all the time in the world, of course they're going to open the chest. If they want to do it without breaking, they can just smash the lock, they can smash the hinges, they can smash, but that all destroys the actual container that is being used. Opening locks doesn't destroy the container. And if you're wanting to put in something that has got some more story value, it might increase the time. So say, okay, they need to break into this safe to get the MacGuffin in order to be able to do the widget thing. Well, the thief rolls low. Basically, under pressure, instead of just a few rounds, it might be a full turn, while everyone else has to stand guard and keep eye out and do whatever they're doing and stop. And well, even in the middle of combat, the thief is just, I need to keep doing this, guys. You've just got to just give me a few more minutes. Just let me do it. Stop harassing me. Because we know what happens when you actually have to do something and you can do it every day. But then when it comes under pressure, sometimes it's like, my hands are just a little bit not working the right way. If you need something to be opened that is part of the story, just make it longer. If it's like a chest and it's nothing, they can, and there's no time frame requirement, they're going to open the lock. There's no point in rolling it and saying you're not going to be able to open this and get it done. It's just sort of helping out in a way, but also keeping, we hate to use the term realism, but just sort of, if you've got all the time in the world, you're going to break the lock. You're going to be able to fix it and get through it. It's under pressure and within a time frame that suddenly these percentages are important, which leads us into finding and removing traps. Because we need to find and remove the traps, and that both takes time, to find it and to remove it. You have the dwarven abilities and the gnomish abilities for physical constructions like sliding walls or shifting stones, and when something happens at a construction level. But what we're talking about here is very much, if you imagine the opening scenes of Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's a find and remove traps scenario. He can't disarm it, he just finds ways of not activating it, or he finds a way of activating it so that he can bypass it. If you can't remove the trap, you have to know how to successfully make it safe for everyone else to travel through it. Follow these footsteps, follow this path, I'll put a stone on where we have to stand, or whatever. And that's the finding the trap. Sometimes you can remove it, sometimes it's a pin lock, or it's a hinge or a nozzle within a container firing out a gas or whatever, and you can disarm it, block it, stop it from activating, then you can remove it. But when it's something like the poison dart trap in Indiana Jones, you can't disarm that, but you can find it and you can definitely work around making it less dangerous. One of the more overused abilities, moving silently and hiding in shadows, that's where the the thief effectively becomes invisible in ways, not quite, but it uses all the same numbers for detecting invisibility. If you've got good ears, if you know, so on, and you've got a detection of invisibility of whatever and whatever, then it happens here. Same too with the dragon senses and so on. Again, with the moving silently, being able to move with little sound and disturbance, so you're not leaving as much of a trail, which I would also include that as a way of being able to not leave a trace behind. But generally, moving silently is a good catch-all percentage for when you're trying to do something with some degree of quiet stealth. Moving silently in terms of sight as well as vision and hearing and all of that. You also got your hiding shadows, which again falls into that category. Now, what I would also like to think about in terms of hiding in shadows is hiding in plain sight, being able to use your surroundings, and that's effectively what you're doing. Blend into the dark areas, flatten oneself by remaining motionless when in sight to remain unobserved. It is a function of dress and practice. So not just I step back into the shadow and I just disappear. If you've ever seen the movie Heat, then you see where that happens. He just stands on lookout, steps back and just disappears into the shadow. That's hiding in shadows. We've also seen it 1,000 times when there's a person on the other side of the street, carriage or a cart or a wagon comes by, and suddenly they disappear. It's not hiding in shadows from everyone, but from the observer, but from the person that you wish to hide as who's observing you, which is also the same as moving silently. You don't have to move silently for for some things. You might have to move silently for something else because that's what you're trying to avoid being seen or heard by, and that's where you can play with that. So the primary functions of the thief being picking pockets, opening locks, finding and move traps, moving silently, and hiding in shadows. With those 5 key ones down, they're the good ones, and they're the ones that the thieves love to use. We come back to the next lot of skills, which are considered secondary function. Listening at doors sort of becomes hear noise. Ascending and descending vertical surfaces, we call that climbing walls. And backstabbing. So the other most important one is obviously read magic. Now, read magic, or the reading languages, that's definitely comes straight out of the Grey Mouse. He did that where once he'd started to take lessons from his magic, using, like, he had a tutor to teach him how magic works and what magic is and how and so on, and from that he was able to read through the various scrolls and read magical tomes, not use the spells always, but just read through it. So I look at listening doors or hearing noise as an enhanced senses. So the thief always starts with essentially the same level of basic listening through the doors that the characters have with their normal chants. But because it's a skill, I would give the thief more detail. A fighter taking off the helmet, listening to it, listens through it, might hear a noise. There's something behind there. Whereas a thief would have a more deeper understanding of what it is that they're actually trying to listen to. I also treat it as the senses in general. So when they're listening for a sound or trying to identify a smell, have good ideas about trying to taste something. We see Sherlock Holmes doing this all the time, where that's the smell of this tobacco, that's the taste of this particular wine, that's the taste of this particular scent of perfume, and so on. And then catalogue it in their mighty brain, good intelligence, and then come back to it when they need to. That all makes sense when you use it in that way, and that's how I would recommend doing that, because we see it a lot and we actually enjoy it when characters and players want to do interesting things with their abilities. So the backstabbing, of course, the caveat is that they have to be, the target has to be able to be surprised. The target has to be having a back. And the thief has to come in from a particular, has to come in from behind, has to come in silently, has to come in. There's enough caveats to make it perhaps a once-off in a combat scenario, and generally at the beginning, not so much later. Once the swirling melee has started, it's not something that you should just be allowing thieves to get into. Thieving, the ability for thieves to fight is the same as a 0 level fighter. And the hit points that a first level thief has is not much different than a 0 level fighter. So city militia, a well-trained city militia has about 4 hit points, so does the thief, and they've got about the same combat chart. So thieves in themselves aren't combat monsters. These are character classes that are designed for the other parts of the adventuring. And I know that that's why we want to have the non-human fighter thief, because we want to get people involved in combat and so on. There's always a way of getting involved in combat. And I introduced you to the sling, but still. Thieves need to be able to identify with their local area as well as what they do. And a good, when the party travel into the city, thieves rock. This is when thieves really hit what they do, because they have their own form of language, sort of language. It's a thieves' cant, and again, the DM needs to figure out how the thieves' cant is going to be handled. Is it just a series of code words, or is it more like an actual underground code? And there are different ways or examples for this. My favourite one is the Drasnian language, where it's a combination of what's being said, how it's being said, as well as hand motions. So you could have 2 people conversing about anything, and then the real message being relayed back and forth. It can be done, and it's something that's good to get into every now and then. And when the two, you as it might role play an encounter between a merchant and the thief as they haggle over the price of a gourd or something, and passing notes to each other, then once that's all finished, the thief just says, "Yep, this is what I found out." The player says, "Yep, this is what I found out. It's this, 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 and this," and everyone's like, "Why are you so interested in this gourd?" But anyway, so yeah, so that's how I again see it, and that's something that's worth getting into. So now when they do the at 4th level, they get the read languages, which is a nice little ability, and we love that. We love anything that allows us to do something funky. And then at 10th level at Master Thief, you've got a chance of actually being able to read scrolls off magic users, which is nice. So whilst they don't have magic, they get a little bit of something down the way. Like all things that needs to be sorted out by the DM, we also have a rapid form of expansion in levels at the early stages. Sort of tapers out a little bit in the middle, but then hits a steady progression further on. Initially, they are going to burst forward, and if the DM is going to run with a training style mechanism and they need to return back to being trained by the guild and so on, then that's something that you need to have already established by the time we get it all started. Because it's 2500, what will have to get to 3rd level, what is most likeliest to happen, that they'll bust through 1st level get partway through their second level in terms of experience points, the adventure might conclude, or the session might conclude, or the little section, and then return to the Thieves Guild for a week or 2 weeks, to get some tooling up. Everyone gets to heal up, everyone gets to do whatever. Then they break out, they go off and do their thing. And what might happen is that you might then have the fighter and the cleric now going up in levels, and the thief will burst out into another level, potentially. And now you're in an area where you've got 3 characters that are looking to be able to pay for advancement and training and establishing all of that. So if they can do it concurrently, that's great. So you've got 3 characters now that are training for 2 weeks, and they have to have X thousand gold pieces available. Meanwhile, the rest of the party are doing something else. They'll go off, get back into the adventure, do the next thing, and there's a small chance that the thieves might grow again, but you'll definitely have like the rangers, the paladins, and magic users all moving to second level at that point. Essentially, when you look at these, the way how I like to look at these classes, and I call it the 10,000 XP challenge. Essentially, what does all the classes look like at 10,000 experience points? And if it's a multi-class, then you can roughly say it's going to be cut in half. The way that it is more identified that when XP happens from one class over another class, it is balanced heavily toward that class. So if it's all combat, it's heavily more weighted toward the fighter. If it's XP derived from stealth and guile and all the thieving stuff, then XP head that way. But looking at a single class thief at 10,000 or 10,001, they're 5th level. Most other classes are 4th level. So they lurch forward a little bit to begin with, but after that, it begins to even out. They're still one level ahead, but it's not crazy, because most of the classes at 10th level, 10,000 XP are in that 4th level. And then you've got the magic users start to burst forward in their middling levels, and they become almost as fast as a thief in the next 3 or 4 levels after that. So the XP bottle that widens and shrinks to eventually flattening out for each class makes it relatively even. So even when they've got 100,000 XP between them, like in each class, a multi-class or not, everyone's roughly balanced at that point. So they're all at 100,000. They're all 8th level, 9th level, 7th level, 6th level. Even with a bard at 100,000 XP, you're looking at them being a 6th or 7th level bard. So the beauty of all of this, whether it's design or accident, is just that the XP values are fine. You don't really need to make too many adjustments. Because it's and you don't want them to burst forward with, okay, you get all your level of abilities, we'll deal with, and you're just in the middle of a dungeon and suddenly you get 5% extra on this and that, and blow on, and blah 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 blah, and so on. That can be dangerous, just because they can suddenly burst forward a few levels, and in that beginning stage, like in the first 3 or 4 levels, this can put them a degree ahead of everyone else. Not so much in hit points, because obviously hit points are d6 per level, so that's 4th level, you're still looking at 16 to 20 hit points depending on constitution. So that's not a problem. But when you've got their abilities, there's that desire, we want them to achieve more because they should be achieving more. But even at 3rd and 4th levels, you're still learning a lot about what classes can do and what learning the ropes, as they say. So what I would get the players to think about when they're making their thief character is what type of thief they want to be. Like I said, they don't have to be the standard street urchin, criminal, underworld, even guild. They can be something else that just has all of the same attributes. Sherlock Holmes is most likely a thief. We see him do everything a thief does. He does all of it. And Indiana Jones, we have the Count of Monte Cristo. You've got thieves that like to plan, more like the Danny Ocean's types, con artist type thieves. Then you've got actual thieves that get involved and do guild work, and they prefer working alone, they prefer working without a crew, and so on. And for the most part, a lot of skills, they just sit there dormant. So you might just go, actually, if you don't want to pickpocket, that's just a personal choice. You're not going to pick pockets. You're not going to be one of those thieves that just walk around taking things out of people's pockets. You're not a kleptomaniac. You're not compulsive. So they're more deliberate, and they open locks, find and move traps, and then so on. They do the other elements. And if somebody says, go pick that pun's pocket, they go, I don't do that. That's not me. Get the halfling to do that. And the halfling complains, but I don't do that. So that's where the role play element comes in. And if you want the characters to have those sorts of quirks, then you let them. Let the player play it like that, and let the player do it that way. If that's the area that they want to make their character in, that's exactly the background. In AD&D First Edition, we don't have pluses and minuses because of a background, because of upbringing, because of blah. You have racial tendencies that allow you to improve in certain ways just because that's your natural bent as a race. Remembering that demi-humans, even dwarves, and are still elementarily magical in nature. They have a tone to them in how they were created by their gods and so on. So they have these natural gifts that just lead them into these things. Whereas, so you don't, a dwarven thief might just go, I don't pick pockets. I don't do that. So don't ever ask me to do it. I'm not going to do it. It's not that I don't have the skill. It's not that I can't do it. Because the pickpocket skill might be used for something else. It might be used for lifting, or might be used for swapping over items, not being seen by someone. If you wanted to flip a piece of, you've got a forged document and you want to swap them with the document that's on the table, that's a pickpocket. The whole nature of a pickpocket is that you're using a little bit of art of distraction to direct attention in order to be able to achieve something else, and that's exactly what you might do. You might lift the paper, replace the paper, and it's got to look like nothing's happened. Pickpockets, done. So whilst they don't walk around picking pockets, they might use their skills in other ways in order to be useful. So that's entirely in the, again, between the player and the DM and how they want it to be done. You might have a buccaneer style thief that's from a ship. They might have the sailor background. And you'll use nearly all of these in that for the same reason. So there's a good background, a good way of being used. You don't have to be a guild thief. You're just part of a crew. You were part of a crew, and now you're just looking for a new crew, and you stumble in with the rest of the crowd, with the rest of the team of the player characters. You can play with the backgrounds in so many different ways. I mean, I could literally do this for an hour on just the thief. I'm not going to. I promise I won't do that. But there are so many nuances to what makes a character what they are, and the thief fits in almost everywhere as to how you would have a thief within that group or organization. Like in a thieves guild, they will have fighters in a thieves guild. They won't be thieves, obviously, but they'll be the muscle. They'll be the guards. There might be hired swords or whatever. Assassins, same sort of deal. Assassins and thieves, they hang out together, sort of. Different different motives, different reasons. We'll talk about assassins another day, but assassins have the same sort of character class bent, where everyone thinks this is what they do, but without twisting it, you can move them in this direction. And the same thing with the thief, and that's what makes the thief so cool, is that it's a primary class, and you could be a scout, you could be working in the city in a militia, still be a thief, because you're the scrounger. You're the one who finds everything out. You're the one who gets the wine that everyone wants. You might have had the background. I mean, you're in leather, you've got roughly the same hit points, you've got roughly the same combat chart. You got everything that's about the same as everything else. In the military, there's a lot of reason why you would have these skills, and so on. So if you could easily be a thief that's not guild related, still be lawful neutral, and work for an organization or a state or a merchant group. You might be a counter thief, the thief that's hired to disrupt other thieves, that sort of thing. There are lots of places where you can find a way to making this work. Alright, so just to finish up, while they don't have the whole stronghold scenario, they can build one if they wish, in which case then they become a rival crime gang to whoever's local, and the attraction of the thieves and so on, and men-at-arms and NPCs and so on, and all of that comes into play. But you've got to be 10th level on that, which isn't too bad. So that's still 160,000 XP. Yeah, you'll get there. But at 10th, you can just still keep adventuring or be a solo master thief. You do not need to have a stronghold built. It's not like a fighter where you need to build one as part of your class, and a cleric where you have to build one as part of your class, and so on. You just still get to be breezy free roaming around, but when you do, you can build yourself a stronghold of some description. It doesn't have to be a castle, it can be a manor, it can be a mansion, it can be something, and then bang, suddenly you generate these people. So that's always handy as well. If you wish to settle down in a town, you can do that. So I realise it's been a long time between drinks, between setting everything up and putting all this forward and everything else. It's been like, I don't know, 70 days according to the YouTube counter, or something like that, maybe 90, maybe even 100, who knows. It's been a while. I want to keep these going. I've got so much more to do. I've just had a little bit of turmoil and tumultuousness within the live streams, but with everything hopefully sorting itself out, settling down, I'll be able to get back to some of this. Really want to punch out a few more. I've got lots of ideas. Like I said, I could do the thief, and I can do one on the fighter with so much clarity. And it's just fantastic. But I want to thank everyone who's supporting. I want to thank everyone who's been hanging around waiting, and I appreciate everyone's opportune time to that they spend to looking through these, commenting. I want to get back to, I try to get to as many comments as possible, try and respond to as many questions. I have questions sent to me, I get things asked, so I do my best to try and find ways to help them out. I do have a lot of detail that doesn't get put into some of these books, that's from other sources, and so I try to introduce that just as ways for DMs to introduce content without having to go to a field. So that's the other the motivation for doing some of this. I want to thank everybody. It's been great, and it's we'll make this a good start. Yeah. So next one hopefully will be in the next fortnight or so. But what I'll do is, we've got a few more games coming up of different things. I've also picked up the Halo game, and had a look at that, which looks really awesome. So I might do a run through on that as well. And if there's anything else that you're interested in, please let me know and I'll see what I can do. Alright, thank you so very much everyone, and I appreciate all of your support.